So what I'd love to just name at the beginning, because I think this is so beautiful and hilarious, is that as we were talking about the show, you're like, I'm not really that into group facilitation. I don't know if this is a good fit. And I'm like, no, this is a fit. So today we're really not focusing so much on group facilitation, but what I find is an integral, essential part, which is how a personal journey informs and creates a body of work. Which you are such an epic role model and icon for. So considering that, I'd love to have you just share a little bit about yourself and the story of how you got where you are today within that context.
Yeah. So, I have a lot of embodiment practices that I teach. They're very subtle ways of dropping into the moment and receiving the moment. And they're very, very subtle inner postures for how to be with the moment, how to be inside the moment, how to meet the unfolding, arising moment, and become intimate with the sensorial aliveness or the deeper vibration of the moment, we might say. Language and words are actually fundamentally a different paradigm and a different reality structure than this place I'm talking about. And I just want to say that, these practices are very simple and they're very subtle. And I just, probably more than anything I've ever created, I have people constantly messaging me because it's free on Spotify, and they're like, I don't know what just happened, but they're like, I touched God, I touched the divine, like it felt like being on mushrooms or something. People, couples will do them together and fall in love and have breakthroughs in their relationship. I've just had so many incredible reflections and feedback of the spaces that people go to, really touching the sacred. I mean, that's what I call the deep feminine current. It's the presence, the felt sense presence of the sacred that is here inside the embodied moment, right? Inside the unfolding moment, inside the moment that we can feel and sense and touch, right? And it's a real presence, and it's ineffable, it's unnameable, it's God, it's the divine, it's truth, it's love, it's the sacred. There's really no word for it, right? But the point is that it's a felt sense that we undeniably feel, Or it's like when you take a small dose of mushrooms and you just kind of look around, and all of a sudden, like, this little presence starts to sparkle through everything, and it's like, oh my gosh, there it is. What is that? This miracle of life, So that's what these embodiment practices do. And, I, of course, have had, long, deep, delicious experiences dropping into this deep feminine current space. But what most people probably don't know is that I developed those practices as a sex worker. One of the gifts that came from that was that I had to basically figure out, like, okay, here's your average modern man, because these are my clients are men. They're super in their head. They don't know how to breathe. They are not in their body at all. And they, the goddess doesn't mean anything to them. A lot of them probably have never experienced just like meeting their own essence, meeting their own inner presence, their beingness inside. But they want to have an experience of pleasure, or they want touch, or they want connection, which is beautiful and an innocent desire. But the way that most just average modern people are geared to try to experience pleasure is very clenchy. There's a lot of clench, there's a lot of agenda, there's a lot of dissociation, there's a lot of objectification, They're not actually inside of themselves. They're not actually in that place where we can touch that ineffable presence of the sacred. And when you experience pleasure while being inside of a place where you can touch the ineffable presence of the sacred, it is it's like a completely different universe, right? It's like there's sex and then there's this, which is a completely different realm,
yes.
you know? So I created a whole body of work, you know, that people are having all kinds of incredible experiences and that aren't related to sexuality. I think that's the part that's so interesting, you know? Like the embodiment practices are not designed for sex, right? They're designed for you to just drop in and do a meditation in the moment with yourself or with someone else. But they come from, you know, an erotic space. Because the erotic is an amazing compass, really. You know, I mean, this is the Presence podcast. In presence, we trust. In presence, we trust. I mean, that's so it. That's so it. Because this is what I would find always with my clients is like, if I'm being with their pleasure, their orgasmic energy from a space that is reverent and inherently wholesome, and I'm just resting back into the moment, I'm not trying to make something happen, I'm being present, genuinely present through my whole body, this just exquisite, effulgent, beautiful, like nectar of wholesome pleasure would emerge. And then the moment you lose presence, the moment you get into agenda, it's really agenda is the thing. And this is probably a lot of what you teach in facilitation, I bet. Like the moment you start going into agenda, it coarsens everything. Like there's a deadening that happens. Like it's very interesting. So when you're working with orgasm energy, that just becomes like very obvious, you know, like it just kills it right away. But when you're just present, this kind of mysterious sacred presence starts to emerge and pleasure starts to swell and this beautiful, you know, thing starts to just happen organically without you making it happen. And like to take a man who's just like, you know, in a very base level sexual desire and like move his heart to tears, there's something about that that's just very redeeming about humanity, I think. And it speaks to what I was really like, my mission as an undercover priestess was like, even if they don't know, even if they're not conscious that they want to feel the ineffable presence of the sacred, that they want, everybody wants it. Everybody wants it. It's so core and basic to who we are, to feel this nourishing presence of love, to feel this touch of the divine. Everybody wants it. That's the premise I was approaching my work from, is like, this is a human birthright and a hunger. And we're so disconnected from what I call the goddess, which is this more connection to immanent spirituality, which includes the erotic and the body, that it's like a giant wound that we don't even know we have. We don't even know we're hungry and lost for this home. And so I would just approach every single person like, I know what you really want deep down, you know? Like you're saying you want this thing, and like I will meet that thing with compassion, but like, you know, I know that deep down you want something more wholesome. And actually, quite frankly, pleasure is better when it's held in reverence and wholesomeness, in my opinion. It just is. And that's been my experience over and over. It's like the way that you want to go about this, like, is not actually going to be as good as if you let me take you to this other place. So we're going to do what I say, you know? And so it was just really powerful because, you know, I mean, this is part of the thing of the path, I think, that I was on, is like, I had to cultivate so much presence to be able to guide in that way. Because you've got to steer this like thousands of years of ancient shadow and projection. And you have to like, you know, and for some reason I just like was obsessed with figuring out how to do that.
You know, I think that there's probably something even in this for many people to, it's like a paradigm shift or like someone has to even understand the place that you're coming from to understand what makes a sacred whore different from a prostitute or ordinary because ordinary prostitution gets the judgment of like, oh, you're just there to serve the man's needs and desires. Like you're just giving away your body and you're just an object or a thing to be taken from. And what you're speaking to, and I think the big misunderstanding here of what a sacred whore actually is that couldn't be further from the truth of what's happening.
Right. You're guiding, you're holding the space with presence, and you're being a guide.
And there's something in that that's amazing, even in the role reversal of a man coming to a space and surrendering to the guidance of a woman and coming to receive that transmission. It flips ordinary sexuality. It places it in a completely different dimension.
Totally. And this is what part of what I think has been so unusual about my path of 15 years is like just, men, we all know that there's this issue with men like not going to therapy. And we all know this kind of cliche thing where like men will go like see a sex worker instead of seeing a therapist because it's like a safe space where it's outside of their normal life. It's kind of secret underground. And it's true, like, they will reveal things, they will kind of unburden themselves, confessional style. And let me tell you, like, the number of men that are like aching to just like be held and guided because they are actually exhausted from performing patriarchal masculinity and having to like always be on top and always be right and always know what's going on and always be a man. And they're like exhausted. And that feeds so much of what I have to say. I talk about, patriarchal masculinity and femininity a lot. And a lot of it comes from seeing up close, like a lot of men just like very tired and hurting from, I'm not saying that they're like victimized, like other people are doing this to them, but like they're just inside this structure of this role and and it's painful. And they're like dying to just kind of like soften and melt into a powerful woman, quite frankly. It's very subversive. It's subversive to the dominant paradigm because the whore is so hated, but it's subversive to regular sex work too, which is in a paradigm of like, kind of being an actress and playing a role. And we're being very like gender specific here. There are obviously male sex workers and female clients and all kinds of things like that. But ordinary sex work is about like fulfilling a fantasy, fulfilling a role, playing pretending to be this thing that you want me to be. Right. Sacred prostitution is it's working with the vibration of pleasure and eros.
And there's something I'm curious about a few things. One, how you even start, like what was like the before and then the impetus to move in. And also just, I'm curious if you were already bringing this in from the beginning, if that's what got you into the work, or it was a process of becoming through doing the work, like by meeting men, they taught you what they needed to learn.
So when I first started coming into puberty and like my sex hormones started coming online, so many of my erotic fantasies always revolved around giving touch to a passive recipient. And I had this whole thing with my wall, and I would just go into this like pouring and dancing and like just on the wall, and just it was like there was just this energy in me that like needed to pour out into someone and needed to give and needed to give and needed to give. And, I was a dancer also, which has a similar kind of energy to it, just that subtle vibration of that ineffable presence, that Shakti, that aliveness, that juice, that sacred eros pulsing through every moment. So it was an instinct for me. And, this is where I feel like, for those of your listeners that are maybe not aware, sacred prostitution in the time before Christianity, before patriarchy, in the era of the goddess, sacred prostitution was a religious, spiritual practice that was done in the temples of the goddess. And there are many different ways that this looked. One of them is taking the war out of men. So when men would come back from war, before they would re-enter the community, they would go to the temple, and the sacred prostitute would make love to them and release the violence of war from their nervous system with pleasure, with eros, so that they could re-enter the community free from the stench of violence and war, right? It was also just a way, just like we have communion now, we have, the body of Christ and the blood of Christ, like the sacred prostitute priestess would make love to you or offer some kind of erotic experience so that you could feel the goddess directly, so that you could have an intimate connection and experience with the divine through the erotic, through lovemaking, through eros, but also beauty and poetry and, right, all of these things, music and everything that falls into this category of lovemaking. So I didn't know about any of this, but I had this compulsion to have a transpersonal offering of my sexuality towards a stranger from a very young age. To me, this speaks of probably past life stuff, right? I had no exposure to any of this. I was very sheltered. Where the fuck would I ever get a template for a sacred whore, But that was my turn on. I was just I need to pour out into a stranger, basically. And so when I was 18 years old, I was reading the paper and I was sitting in a pizza place, and I got to the back pages of the paper where the very vulgar, profane prostitute ads were. And it was like a divine light. I was psh, and I was so moved, touched to the core of my being. And I had to walk outside and just walk in the fresh air because I was so lit up. This electricity was moving through me, this divine energy, and this deep sense of, oh my God, this is me. It was just the deepest knowing, I belong to this tribe. I don't know how, I don't understand, I don't know how it looks, but this is me for sure. I am one of them. This is my tribe, And it was just very, I had no context for this at that time, but this is all very past life stuff, This is ancient sacred prostitute karma kind of stuff, I would say. So, it took a number of years, of figuring out how to, the way I would describe it is I could sense something so sacred and so profound in these space. I just knew it was there, but I'm dealing with this desecrated temple and this right, it's the year 2004 and everything is where am I? The temple has been desecrated. This is all wrong. This is so gross and filthy and sad and, just so many things. And, I just basically didn't want to give up on my sense that there was some possibility in these spaces that was very profound, that there was something that I could do or harness or cultivate or offer that was very sacred. And I don't think I really understood it. And along the way, you know, having little breakthroughs in the session, finding mentors and people that I looked up to that were further along, finding the book called The Sacred Prostitute, which is a very profound book about ancient sacred prostitution, and just really cultivating, you know. But it took a long time because it's really about cultivating power, you know. It's about cultivating, like, I know who I am, I know what I serve, and I know how to take you down into that space. And I know how to use my presence and use my words to be present with you in such a way that this beautiful thing organically emerges. So it was really just an organic process that took a very long time. Yeah, took years to figure out. Yeah, I have a story that I tell in my undercover priestess story that is just really kind of says everything, I think, about what this energy is of the sacred prostitute. I was working in Washington, D.C., and I had one of those days where it was like, you know, 3 or 4 sessions. So like, this is a long time and I'm very immersed. And so at the end of the day, I go to walk downtown and get some dinner. And like, I am just like my energy field is massive. And like, I've just got my little hoodie on or whatever, but like everyone's turning and looking at me. Like everyone's just like, you know, cause I'm like emanating, you know, and just in bliss and in presence. And this homeless man walked up to me and just like put out his hand. And I've got like a stack of cash, of course, because I've worked all day. And so I'm just like, just don't even think. I just like grab $20, hand it to him. You know, I'm just like, yay, like love, you know. And then I keep walking. And then another homeless man sees me. And he starts walking towards me. And I'm like kind of laughing. I'm like, oh, he saw me give the money to the other guy. So now and I'm like, I wonder how much I'm going to give away here, you know, because I'm just going to keep giving it away. And he walks up to me and I pull out the $20 bill, but he doesn't look at it and he doesn't reach for it. He's just reaching for me and he's looking at me and I'm not sure, you know what, but like kind of unable to speak, like maybe a stroke or something, like struggling to make sounds, like, you know. And he wants this thing that he feels in me, you know. And I don't even know how it happened, but like it was just the sacred prostitute energy was still in me, and like all of a sudden I'm sitting on the sidewalk. He's in my arms and we're just sitting on the sidewalk, like in the middle of downtown Washington, D.C. Everyone's walking by and he's just like convulsing and like releasing. And I'm just holding him and pouring love into him and pouring love into him and pouring love into him. And he's convulsing and he's shaking. And I'm just like pouring. But again, not efforting, like just she love presence is pouring out of me. And he comes up, he's got like a little tear here. And I remember like he was more, I could see him in his eyes more, you know, like it was like, and I was thinking, this person might not have had someone be with him in, I don't know, weeks, months, years, like with him, you know. And he was sort of like more here. And he gave me a kiss on the cheek. And then I just like got up and kept walking, you know. And that's the sacred prostitute. Like it's a well of love that wants to feed those who most need it and go to the places that are the most in pain, the most hungry, the most in need of love. That's what she is to me.
So gorgeous. something that I want to point to that you're kind of naming, you're speaking to here is the difference between being a teacher and being a transmission.
Mm-hmm.
How do you work with that in your work around, yeah, you do such a great job of it, and yet there is a place where they're intertwined.
It's like, I just personally, for me, am more interested in, it's kind of like how I wanted to pour into a passive recipient. Like, you just lay down, I'm going to pour this thing into you. I like doing that. My system is made for that. So I do really well teaching that way. Like, I'm like, my favorite thing to do now is it's like, cameras off, come if you want, lay down, listen, and I'm going to like transmit this thing, Facilitation, obviously facilitation is profound. I think, I mean, it's a little edgy to say because this is the facilitation process.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You can say it.
It's just like, there's something in my own journey where I think I started to feel a little bit suspicious about the dynamic of like, I know what you need and I know what's good for you and I know what's going on in your process. Being on the giving and receiving side of that, I have started to kind of become a little more like, something in me has just wanted to move away from that. There's something in, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm actually curious what you would have to say about this, right? Because it's like, I have a therapist, right? And like, I love my therapist and I love the work we do together. But it's funny because I hold space for people just like he does. And like, I know how fucked up I am. And I'm like, I know this dude is like fucked up and like way more fucked up than what he's like. There's something like we get into a little posture, right? Where it's like, I'm the client. So like, I'm broken and I need help. And like, you're the therapist and you know what's going on. and that can be a really useful vehicle. But like, I've been questioning what about that might be disempowering for everybody involved. Like this, even if you try not to do it, it's always kind of there.
Yeah, I hear you. It's interesting because there's a few elements to kind of start to flesh out, which is one, this pouring out that you're speaking about. I mean, I have that in my writing for sure. Like when I write, I'm just like pouring out. But when it comes to like embodied transmission, I need it to be relational. Like for me, it comes through the relational portal. Like that's actually need the other person, and then in that I can come alive. It's not so one directional, which is why facilitation works for me so well, because it's like once a body of people gets there, something starts coming alive in me that's maybe not even alive before they were there. So there is a co-creation to what comes through me where people are essential for that. But I don't see my spaces at all as I know what you need and I'm here to fix you. I see it as I'm here opening a space and we're all going to see what happens here. Like we're going to just surrender to what's coming through us together. I have some ideas of what can help create that space. And if you surrender with me to that knowing, we'll all go there together. But I'm not like therapizing or working one-on-one with people. It's more us surrendering to a force together.
Yes. But do you find that people project that
totally,
on you
which is
like
what
fix
yes,
my
yes,
life?
which is what
Yes.
I have to work against is the depedestalization and the coming to me. And it's like there's a constant like, I don't want that. Like no, don't give me that. This is yours. This is not mine. Like take it back, which is why I even try to do less of that. It's what I call like the guru mentality of people being like, I'm coming to you. And I'm constantly trying to use presence and collective witnessing to reveal to people what they need to see and trusting that they'll get what they need to take away, but I don't tell them. I allow the group's a collective group resonance and awareness to reveal it back to them. And then they can take what they're able to actually see and integrate. And that's like what I start to call self-led transformation. Like people can take themselves through the process, because if they aren't and I'm feeding it to them, I find it's already disembodied and it's already not going to integrate.
And it's the presence in the collective mirrors of everyone there that is aiding in the transformation.
Not just mine.
Yeah. It's not what you're doing.
It's the group.
I think that it takes a lot, though, to what you were saying of like handing back. And I think probably, honestly, I think I'm much more vulnerable for some reason to getting pulled into that projection and like, I do need to fix you because you want me to, and I do need to know what you should do with your life because that's what you want. I think that transference is maybe, it's difficult for me maybe to do that. And so I've kind of like, shied away a little more and tried to be much more like, look, I have these teachings and like, you do what you want with them. Like, I don't know you. I don't know what you need with your life. Like, I don't know. That's just where I've been lately. That's just been my vibe.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And there's a tender place here because if someone, I was just writing about this recently, that someone has to be able to make the shift from being on defense to being on offense for themselves. It's like to go from caring so much about their life and wanting so much, like being so sure that this isn't working, I need to change something, and coming from like a self-asserted place of like, I'm going to do this for myself. Like there is a shift that happens when people go from victimhood and passive receptivity to being like on the offense. Like, here's the like, I need to do this for myself. If someone doesn't have that, I really just lean back then. And then they're like, oh, but you're not, but wait, where are you? And why aren't you doing the thing? And it's like, no, I'm not, no. And so they might.
Well, you have to tolerate people's disappointment.
Exactly, is what I'm trying to say. People will be, if I don't feel you're ready and willing to do the work, you're going to be very disappointed in who I'm going to be for you. And then I have to face the disappointment.
But you obviously.
Yes.
Yes. You obviously have a practice in doing that and being like, I'm just going to feel and process.
Yeah,
that.
and it meets all those parts of me that want to be, liked and approved of and worthy, and I have to just keep meeting that. And I find it's either that or I become the pedestalized guru.
It's something, it's very intense to be inside of what we're talking about here, like receiving people's projections on mass scale. It's a lot. It's a lot. And when you're facilitating groups, I'm sure that's, a big thing because you do a lot of groups. You do a lot.
I want to take a little gear shift now because we've been talking a lot about how you got started and working with men. But over the last, I don't know how many years, you've primarily, I think, been working with women. And so I'm curious, and we're also talking about how your personal journey creates a body of work. Can you like make the bridge for me from sacred whore working with men, embodiment coming into the deep feminine, and then working with women, and there's, I think, a few different threads of how you're working with women as well. But I'd just be curious for that bridge from those worlds and how the body of work you started developing for women, like where, take me there.
I could certainly tell a story about how, again, because I spent thousands of hours of my life practicing a very deep embodied meditation, meeting the moment, You know, I just discovered a lot of things about embodiment and about feeling and about vibration. I mean, even the sacred rage work that I teach is like, it still directly flows from this because it's still about that vibrational level of reality. It's the pulsing aliveness that moves through us, and it takes different shapes and it takes different forms. And one of them is this thing that I call sacred rage, which, I mean, gosh, I could talk about that forever, just in terms of like the way our eroticism has been perverted. There's an exact parallel to how anger has been perverted. It's actually the same perversion, which is really, it's quite profound. Like when you start to really tap into it, like the same way that the erotic has gone from just a deeply wholesome, nourishing, embodied connection to receiving that primal vibration, to this kind of like agenda, attention, objectifying, pornified thing. Anger too, like true anger, as I call it, is a potent, powerful experience of that vibration that's like primally fierce, and it's wholesome, it's loving, but it's very like, like I've like got my like fucking feet on the ground here, like, you know. And that's been perverted and fucked with into like kind of violent, shaming, abusive, like everything we think of when we think of the word rage, you know? So, you know, I could tell a story about how I just like learned how to have a really deep, intimate PhD level relationship with the primal vibration that flows through reality.
So you're teaching or holding a sacred rage facilitator training right now. Is your perspective more, well, what is your perspective? I'll just say.
The whole thing with sacred rage is that we have been really fucked with around anger, the same way we've been fucked with around sexuality. We're very, like, most people don't really know how to commune with their anger. And there's all this spiritual stuff that's very anti-anger, and patriarchal femininity is all about not being angry and being sweet and being nice and being accommodating. And then you have this model of anger, which is like screaming and shouting and, you know, and a lot of women are just like, whoa, like that's like scary, too much. Like, I'm not ready for that kind of confrontation, the conflict, you know. And so they just shut it down. And it's the reason, I believe, why there's so many autoimmune disorders in women. There's just so many issues that I see with women over and over and over again that, like, I can just see. It's like, you're not feeling your anger. You're not in touch with your anger. You do not have a relationship with your anger, you know? So a lot of sacred rage is first of all, just a radical different paradigm shift, where I'm basically saying this thing that we call anger is not anger. Anger is something else. And yes, we have to actually get down into our bodies, into a subtle vibration to start to feel it. And when we make contact with it, just like sacred eros, it is so nourishing. It is so life-giving. It has supported me so immensely in my life in terms of like my self-love, my capacity for boundaries, my having my own back, like just, you know, and this is my relationship with it. It's me receiving the vibration of sacred rage.
And I'm curious because I know you're also working as like a creative midwife for many women. And I'm curious about like what you see as the main blocks for women into their creativity. And if I'm imagining there's a connection
Totally.
here.
Oh my God. Hyper-perfectionism. never, ever, ever releasing their body of work, because it's never just exactly, it has to be exactly so perfect and so perfect and so perfect and so perfect. And they just sit on their creation forever. That's like the biggest breakthrough that I see over and over and over is when women are actually becoming willing to allow their expression to be like a little rough around the edges, but it's alive. It's not like under this perfectionism thing. It's alive. And then the other one I would say is, for a lot of sensitive women, deep feeling women, spiritual women, putting yourself out there, like on social media, it's so intense. And there's a lot of messages that are very like, just like, own yourself, girl. Like, yeah, like you're the best, like put yourself out there. And it's actually too intense. And what I've found for me and for the clients I work with is that oftentimes we need to relate to our creation as a sacred other. Even though it's so me, I need to relate to it like it's something else. It's not me. I'm in service to it. I'm standing behind it. I'm the steward and the priestess of it. It's not me being like, there's something about that when you're highly sensitive, is very helpful. A lot of highly sensitive women don't bring their creations forward because it's just too intense to be that exposed and seen, And then people kind of filter through like, oh, that's trauma. And I don't think I think oftentimes it's just the nature of being a highly sensitive person. It's just too intense.
This is fascinating. This is really cool. I mean, I can relate to this. I mean, I'm writing a lot lately, and every time I'm ready to publish a writing, I have to go through a whole process in myself around like, oh, is this, and like, yeah, like, can I release this, or is this going to be the thing that everyone's going to, yeah, it's like, it's every, it's every.
Well, you're so personal in your sharing. Yeah. You really let us in.
Yeah.
In your world and you're in.
Yeah. It's the way that it comes, but it's like, I imagine people must think, oh, it's just a new but it's like, no, every time there is like a whole process I have to go through. Yeah.
And so why do you do it when it's so? Because there is
a it's like, it's twofold. It's for me and it's for them. It's like, it's for us. It's like even right now I'm writing a lot about being a single mother and dating. And it's like, there's so many things that I'm writing about that are maybe shameful or taboo or vulnerable, but then it comes out and then it's like, oh my God, you're putting words on the thing that I am and it's like, okay, I'm not alone. So there's like a part where it's like, oh, I feel like I open and relax and then they feel seen and then we are together. So there's like a relational element in it also of like, oh, we're all together with this human thing and we're all struggling and okay, I'm not alone and you're not alone and we can do this together. Right. And it's just like opening.
So you meet the edge of like, this is the thing that might be so ugly or so shameful or so bad about me that like everyone's going to go away and no one's going to like me.
Yeah.
And no one's going to be able to relate. I'm the only one. I'm the freak. I'm the only one. And then every time you get met with, you just put words to something I haven't been able to say.
Or like even recently I wrote about power and really owned this dynamic where I give my power away. And part of that is so weird because I'm like a leader and I'm the one other people are usually giving their power away to. And I needed to just own that I'm doing that. But there's like this part of me, it's like, oh no, is everyone now not going to trust me because they'll fear that I might give my power away? And the response I got was like, no, I trust you more now because you're aware of that and you're willing to own it. And it's like, shit, so it becomes this really beautiful Yeah, relational. It's very relational experience.
Well, it's very similar to what you were saying with the facilitation. Like, as a collective group of mirrors and resonance, we hold and heal and transform each
Yes.
other.
Yeah. Yes, but I love also what you're speaking about of there comes a moment also where you have to depersonalize and put it like outside. You know, there's moments also, even the process of writing, especially when it's something personal, needs to be depersonalized and needs to be like an entity, because the way I write also can't always be 100% true. And if I'm writing about my shared experience with someone else, there's always someone else's reality that's a part of that. So it almost has to be like a movie or a novel or a book or something where it's people can relate to it as a thing, but it has to be depersonalized from being so much about me. And it's now a thing people can relate to that might or might not be true. And when I'm writing, I'm trying to be as true as possible, but it's impossible for that to happen. But putting it outside myself and being like, and also because I can't be attached to how people receive it. Do you know what I mean? Some people receive it, and even the way they receive it isn't true to the way I experienced it. So in that, I can get hooked in being
Social media is really good. It's like, ooh, that happens so much.
I'm just like, this is fascinating. How did you read that? Like, how did you get that from those words? It wasn't even part of what I put in there, but okay, you're having a relationship to that experience now, and I'm going to trust that. That's the relationship you need to have to that writing, you know, and I have to depersonalize and step back from it. So I think teaching or giving that power back to people is a really brilliant way to be able to release what's coming through and let it live without the attachment and the gripping.
Holding it in presence, basically. In presence we trust.